Chapter 6 of Tractate Shevuos covers laws of court-imposed oaths. The first Mishnah says, court-imposed oaths ordered by judges are done for claims at a minimum of 2 silver ma'is coins, or for a partial admission of payment at a minimum of a peruta coin. If the admission is of a different type of coin than the actual claim, the defendant doesn't need to take an oath. For instance, if somebody demands repayment of 2 silver coins and the other says he only has a few of his copper coins, he doesn't need to take an oath. If the man demands silver and copper coins and the man says he only has his copper coins, he could be obligated to take an oath. If somebody claims another man has his 100 denarim and the other denies this totally, he's not biblically obligated to take an oath. If the man said, "You have my 100 denarim," and the man says, "No, I only have 50, he would be obligated to take an oath, as he admitted to part of the claim. If somebody says another man has 100 of his father's denarim, and the man said he only has 50, even though he partially admitted to the claim, he would not need to take an oath here, as it's as if he's just returning a lost object. If somebody tells another person, "I have 100 of your denarim," and the other man says, "Yes, this is true," and then later demands the coins, but the first man says he already repaid it, he does not need to take an oath. But if he denied ever having the money, as we know from witnesses that he had admitted to doing so earlier, he's obligated to repay him. If somebody tells another person, "I have 100 of your dinarim," and the other says, "Yes, this is true, but only return it to me before witnesses," and later the first man says he already repaid it, he would need to repay it again, as he had agreed to do so only before witnesses. Some other particular points based on these rules: if somebody says another man has his litra of gold, and the other says he only has his litra of silver, he's exempt from oaths as it's of a different material. If, however, the man said, "You have my gold dinar," and the man admitted to having his silver dinar, traces, pundion, peruta, or other type of coin, he would be obligated to take an oath, as all types of coins are just considered to be one general type. If somebody said, "You have my kar of grain," and the other says, "I only have a lesach of your legumes," he's exempt from oaths, as he admitted only to a different material. If the man said, "You have a kar of my produce," and the other says he only has a lesach of legumes, he would be obligated to take an oath, as legumes are a produce. If the man claimed the other had his wheat and the other admitted to only having his barley, there's no oaths, as those are different materials. Others disagree, saying they're actually the same type. If somebody says somebody has his jugs of oil and the man admits to only having empty jugs, it's a debate if they're the same type and whether oaths are required here. If the first man claims the other has his utensils and land, and the other only admitted to having all his utensils but denied having the land, or only admitted to having all his land and denied having his utensils, he's exempt from any oath. If he admitted to owing only part of the land, he's exempt from oaths. If he admitted to owing only part of the utensils, he's obligated to take an oath, as movable properties can require property to combine to require an oath. There are no oaths taken based on the claim of a deaf, mute, an insane person, or a minor. We don't impose oaths onto a minor, but you can swear to a minor or to the temple treasury. The Gemara says a person would swear with the words of the oath given in scripture, being, "And I will have you swear by Hashem, God of the heavens," meaning by God's name. This has variation based on discussion in earlier chapters as to what exactly constitutes God's name. It said that while taking an oath, the man should hold a sacred article, something like a Torah scroll or tefillin. Generally, somebody takes an oath while standing and holding a Torah, but a Torah scholar can sit and even in the first place hold tefillin. The oath of the judges are said in the defendant's language. Also, when the defendant takes an oath, the judges express the great importance and significance of oaths and the severity for being dishonest, quoting several verses on this, so the person will take care and only speak the truth. If the man refuses to take an oath, he's excused from the court. If he chooses to take the oath, they further express the relevant points, that the words he speaks must not be based on his own understanding, but based on the understanding of God and otherwise. It further discusses these points and the severe retribution taken for making a false oath, which it says affects the entire world. It clarifies the necessity for all these various points. It said that the minimum claim for oaths to be taken was silver ma'is. It's a debate as to whether this is the amount of the denial of the claim or of the claim itself. This argument is based on the interpretation of verses which are discussed. It additionally debates between these opinions, quoting a number of different discussions. Evidently, it seems to hold like the first opinion, that it refers to the minimum of the denial of the claim. Now, that minimum of 2 silver ma'is was by the claim between a lender and a borrower, who only partially admitted to his debt. If the borrower completely denied any debt whatsoever, and the lender had a single witness, the borrower would need to take an oath even if the minimum demanded was a single peruta coin. This is based on a verse. Also, if somebody demanded his wheat and barley and the borrower admitted to owing only one of those, it said he must then take an oath. This is sourced. It's discussed. Others disagree and say the man would be exempt from an oath in this case, and they debate further, although it says the original opinion stands. It further discusses versions of this. Related, it said if somebody demanded his wheat from a man and then was about to also demand his barley, but the other man preemptively admitted to having his barley, it said the court judges whether he was intentionally trying to be dishonest. and have him take an oath accordingly. Also, if somebody demanded 2 of his needles and the other man admitted to having one of them, he'd be obligated to take an oath, showing that this whole principle applies no matter how inexpensive the items in question are. Some say if somebody demanded his utensils and a pruta coin from somebody and the man admitted to having the utensils but denied the pruta coin, he's exempt from an oath, as that's under 2 ma'is. But if he admitted to the pruta and denied the utensils, he would be obligated to take an oath. We said that if somebody claims a man has his 100 dinarim and the man denies this entirely, he's exempt from an oath. Others hold that he would still need to take a rabbinically instituted hesses oath, which is discussed. It further explains the difference between ordinary biblical oaths and hesses oaths, as a biblical oath cannot be reversed while a hesses oath can. Others actually say biblical oaths can be reversed, so they'd say a difference is that biblical oaths allow the court to claim a man's property, unlike rabbinic oaths. Others say this actually would be allowed by a rabbinic oath, so they'd say the difference is that by a biblical oath, if somebody's suspect of making a false oath, the other party must then take an oath too, which does not apply by rabbinic oaths. According to the opinion that said a rabbinic oath is insufficient to claim property, in that case he's instead threatened with exile and then lashings to get him to repay his debts. There are related cases. It said if somebody lends money before witnesses, he must then return it before witnesses. If the borrower claims he returned the money before witnesses, but then those witnesses just left the country, he's believed. Others debate this. There's variation on this dispute as to if somebody is believed when they say they repaid a debt before witnesses. A few specific cases on this topic are brought and discussed. There are various other related rulings. We had ended by saying there are no oaths taken on the claim of a deaf mute or an insane person, which is based on a verse, and a minor is not legally allowed to do so. We said that you can take an oath towards a minor or to the temple treasury. Here, the minor refers to where he has his father's claim. This case is discussed further. Essentially, there's a debate in such a circumstance if a person would be brazen enough to deny the entirety of such a claim. It debates who we hold in accordance with. Others simply explain our case where the man is taking an oath to a minor to be that he wants to collect the debt from a man who passed away, so is swearing before his minor heir. When he's swearing to collect from the temple treasury, this is to collect encumbered properties, which it states to show an oath must be taken even here out of concern of theft from the temple. Such a concern uniquely would not apply to an extremely sick man. New Mishnah. There's no necessity to take oaths regarding slaves, notes of indebtedness, land, or consecrated property. If they're stolen, none of these are subject to liability for double or 4 or 5 times payments. An unpaid guardian over these would not swear oaths on any of these, and a paid guardian over these does not pay if any of them are lost or stolen. Some say a guardian does need to swear by consecrated objects only if the owner is responsible for them. There's a debate regarding whether certain plants are treated as land by laws of oaths. If somebody lent 10 grapevines to a man and the man says he only received 5, there's a debate if an oath is necessary here. Also, as a general rule, it says there are only oaths taken on things that can be defined by measure, weight, or number. For instance, if somebody claimed he lent a house full of produce or a purse full of money or similar, and the other man says he's not sure of the exact amount, but it's less than that, there are no oaths taken. But if he said he only had produce up to a window on the house or otherwise, he'd need to take an oath. The Gemara brings sources for all these points. Further scriptural sources for all these are cited. The debate of grapevines have oaths taken on them or not is based on a debate if anything attached to land is considered to be land or not. Others explain the debate to be by grapes ready to be harvested, and the debate is as to if they're considered as if they're already harvested. Regarding somebody testifying that he lent a vague amount of produce where there is no oath, some say that an unspecified household isn't a proper measurement, but a specific houseful would be, and would require an oath. Others disagree, and it's said simply both the defendant and plaintiff need to bring their claims with specific measures, weights, or numbers for oaths to become applicable, and it brings sources for this. There are some particular cases. New Mishnah. If somebody lent another man money, sella, and received collateral, and then lost the collateral, and the lender claims the collateral was a shekel, so half a sella, and the borrower claims it was a full sella, so the same amount that was lent, meaning he owes him nothing essentially, the borrower is exempt from any oath. If, however, the lender claims the collateral was a shekel and the borrower says, no, it was worth 3 dinarim, so he owes a single dinar, he'd be required to take an oath. If the borrower claims the collateral was 2 salaim and the other man says the collateral was a single sella, he's exempt from any oath. If the borrower claims the collateral was 2 salaim and the lender says it was 5 dinarim, so he owes 1 dinar, he would need to take an oath. Essentially, the one who had the collateral deposit before it got lost would need to take the oath, so the lender. Otherwise, the borrower will be able to take an oath, and then the lender would reveal the deposit afterwards and completely disqualify the borrower from oaths or testimony, which would be unfair. The Gemara explains, That conclusion statement would apply possibly specifically to the second case of the Mishnah, which is explained. If somebody lends 1,000 zuz to another person and he was given collateral of something very cheap, like a sickle handle, if he loses this collateral, he loses the full loan. If the collateral was 2 sickle handles, then he only loses one of those. He doesn't lose half the loan. Others disagree and say he would actually lose half. It debates this principle further. This is additionally discussed. It's explained. There's a debate on this after the sabbatical year, if there's collateral. Some say the full debt is retained, some say only the debt according to the value of the collateral. Others explain this debate to be where the collateral is the same value of the loan, and the opinion which says the debt is released essentially holds collateral is essentially just to be used as a reminder to repay the loan. And that's the end of chapter 6.